Welcome, dear dreamer. Settle in now and imagine yourself stepping quietly into a vast, silent library, one so immense that its shelves stretch beyond your sight, disappearing into shadows and whispers. The air is still, thick with the scent of old paper and polished wood, a place where time has paused. Tonight, you won't march armies or sail seas. You won't hear the clashing of swords or the roar of battle. Instead, you will open pages. Pages that hold the power to shape minds and cultures, to birth revolutions, and to console hearts. These books have walked through fires of history, survived the rise and fall of empires, and traveled across continents. Now, they rest here, in stillness, waiting patiently for a new listener, a new traveler to breathe life into their words once again. Among these volumes lie religious texts that countless souls have revered, sacred words that have inspired faith, contemplation, and community. We do not separate or categorize these books tonight, for each holds a significance that transcends labels. Each carries its own following, its own heartbeat, its own quiet power. So close your eyes when you're ready, dear dreamer, and let the whispers of these pages guide you. Let the vastness of this library and the depths of its knowledge become your sanctuary tonight. Welcome to a library of dreams. Our journey begins in the vast, arid deserts of 7th century Arabia, a land of shifting sands and boundless skies. It is here, in the year 610 CE, that the Prophet Muhammad received the first of many revelations that would change the course of history. Over the next 2 decades, these divine messages, conveyed by the angel Gabriel, were memorized meticulously by Muhammad and his early followers. These revelations were not initially written down in a single book. Instead, they lived in the hearts and memories of the companions, passed on orally with reverence and precision. The oral tradition ensured that the verses were preserved with extraordinary care, embodying a spiritual and communal connection deeper than ink on parchment could capture. After Muhammad's passing in 632 CE, as Islam spread rapidly, the need to compile these revelations into a unified text became urgent. Under the Caliphate of Uthman around 650 CE, the Quran was standardized. Multiple versions had begun to circulate, and to preserve the integrity and unity of the faith, copies of a standardized Quranic manuscript were distributed to major Islamic centers. This act not only unified Muslim communities, but also preserved the Quran's form as it is known today, revered as the literal word of God. The Quran is composed of 114 chapters known as surahs, varying widely in length from just a few verses to several pages. Its organization is not chronological, but rather thematic and rhythmic, a reflection of its oral origins and the profound art of its language. The surahs unfold in a sequence that balances solemnity with exaltation, narrative with command, and poetry with clarity. The Arabic language of the Quran is rhythmic and melodious, a tapestry woven with intricate patterns of rhyme and rhythm known as tajwid. This unique cadence elevates the text beyond mere prose into a form of spiritual music. Its verses often employ vivid imagery and metaphor, creating a powerful sensory experience for the listener, whether spoken or heard silently. Central themes permeate the Quran's message: the oneness of God, Tawheed, mercy, justice, and the moral guidance necessary for a harmonious life. The text weaves stories of earlier prophets, Adam, Noah, Moses, and Jesus, linking their struggles and teachings to a greater divine narrative. These stories serve not only as spiritual lessons, but as reflections on human nature, faith, and perseverance. The Quran's style defies simple categorization. It is neither purely legalistic nor solely poetic. It exists in a sacred space that challenges the boundaries of language. Its linguistic excellence has been described as inimitable, a miracle that believers say cannot be replicated. As we explore this monumental book, remember that the Quran is not just a text, but a living, breathing presence in the lives of over 1 billion people worldwide. Its verses are recited daily, its guidance sought in times of joy and hardship. The Quran's impact extends beyond religion, influencing art, literature, law, and philosophy throughout Islamic history and beyond. Tonight, as we rest in this library of dreams, imagine the rhythmic flow of the Quran's verses, an eternal river of light and meaning washing softly over the centuries, inviting us into contemplation and peace. The Quran holds a place of unparalleled reverence in Islamic civilization, declared by believers as the uncreated Word of God, eternal and divine. This belief elevates the Quran far beyond a sacred text. It is considered the direct voice of the Almighty, timeless and perfect in every letter and sound. This exalted status has woven the Quran deeply into the fabric of Muslim life, guiding not only spiritual devotion but the very laws, arts, and sciences of societies shaped by its wisdom. At the core of Islamic governance and daily life, the Quran provides the foundation for Sharia law, a comprehensive legal framework derived from the Quran's moral and ethical guidance. Sharia touches every aspect of human existence, from justice and commerce to family relations and personal conduct. Its principles emphasize fairness, compassion, and accountability, inspired by the Quran's insistence on mercy and justice. The Quran's injunctions have thus shaped legal traditions and societal norms for centuries, influencing courts, rulers, and communities from the Middle East to Southeast Asia and beyond. But the Quran's influence extends far beyond law. It has inspired a rich cultural flowering across the Islamic world, most notably in the art of calligraphy. Because the Quran forbids idolatry and the depiction of divine figures, the written word itself became a sacred art form. Artists developed intricate scripts that weave letters into geometric patterns and flowing designs, turning Quranic verses into visual poetry. These calligraphic masterpieces adorn mosques, manuscripts, and palaces, transforming the act of writing the divine word into a devotional expression of beauty and reverence. Philosophers and scientists, too, drew inspiration from the Quran's profound emphasis on knowledge and reflection. Thinkers such as Avicenna and Averroes built bridges between Quranic teachings and Greek philosophy, advancing fields like medicine, metaphysics, and ethics. The Quran's call to ponder the signs of creation encouraged scholars to explore astronomy, mathematics, and natural sciences, fostering a golden age of intellectual achievement in the Islamic world. This dynamic interplay between faith and reason shaped centuries of inquiry and learning, demonstrating the Quran's role as a catalyst for human understanding. Central to the Quran's enduring impact is the art and discipline of its recitation, known as tajwid. This is not merely reading. It is a sacred performance governed by precise rules that shape how every letter and word is pronounced. Tajwid transforms the Quran from written text into a living, breathing melody that resonates deeply with the heart and soul. Reciters, often trained from a young age, master these rules to deliver the verses with clarity, rhythm, and emotion. Their voices rise and fall, elongate vowels, pause for reflection, and embrace each phrase like a prayer set to music. The sound is both powerful and soothing, capable of inspiring awe and calming restless minds. This musicality is an intrinsic part of the Quran's miracle, as the melody carries meaning and spirituality that transcend literal understanding. What is remarkable is that even those who do not speak Arabic, the language of the Quran, can feel the profound effect of its recitation. The rhythmic flow, the echoing cadence, and the subtle shifts in tone create a sensory experience that touches the listener's inner world. Many describe the recitation as a balm for the soul, a source of comfort in times of trouble, and a beacon of peace in moments of turmoil. Across the globe, in quiet mosques and bustling cities, the Quran's recitation rings out. It connects generations, cultures, and continents, a shared thread of faith and identity. Its sounds drift through moonlit nights and dawn prayers, reminding all who listen of the eternal presence of the divine word. Imagine ancient Greece, centuries before the rise of empires and democracies, a time when stories were the lifeblood of culture. In bustling marketplaces and village squares along the sparkling Aegean coast, a figure appears, a bard, possibly blind, named Homer. He carries no written manuscript, for these were times when tales lived by word of mouth, passed down through generations by voice alone. Homer's gift was the art of epic storytelling, reciting grand poems that wove history, myth, and moral lessons into unforgettable melodies. Two of his most celebrated works, the Iliad and the Odyssey, stand as monumental pillars in Western literature. The Iliad plunges us into the fiery rage of Achilles during the Trojan War, a conflict that rages over a decade with gods and mortals intertwined in a tragic dance of fate and free will. The Odyssey follows the long and perilous journey of Odysseus as he strives to return home after the war, facing mystical creatures, divine interventions, and the haunting pull of longing and loyalty. Homer's epics are more than stories. They are windows into the ancient Greek world, reflecting its values, fears, and dreams. Though much about Homer's life remains a mystery, some scholars debate whether he was one person or a tradition, the power of these works is undeniable, shaping the literary imagination for millennia. The backdrop of the Iliad is the legendary Trojan War, a siege that lasted 10 brutal years, pitting the Greeks against the city of Troy, perched high on its walls by the Dardanelles. This war was not just a clash of armies, but a cosmic contest where gods walked among men, influencing battles with whims and vendettas. At the heart of the Iliad lies the fury of Achilles, the greatest Greek warrior. When insulted by Agamemnon, the war's commander, Achilles withdraws from battle, his rage seething like a storm. His absence on the battlefield tips the scales, and the Trojans, led by the noble Hector, press forward with valor and desperation. Hector, defender of Troy and prince, embodies courage and duty, fighting not for glory alone, but to protect his family and city. The Iliad explores themes far beyond war: human pride and anger, honor and shame, friendship and loss. The gods, Zeus, Athena, Apollo, are active players, sometimes aiding, sometimes thwarting heroes, reflecting the ancient Greeks' view of divine forces shaping mortal lives. The narrative does not glorify violence uncritically, but reveals its devastating costs: the grief of mothers, the tears of warriors, and the fragility of life amid immortal schemes. As you rest tonight, picture the clash of shields and the roar of warriors, but also the quiet moments of reflection, a mother's lament, a fallen soldier's farewell, a hero's choice between glory and mortality. The Iliad invites you into this ancient world where human passions and divine intrigues collide, setting the stage for stories that will echo across ages. While the Iliad plunges us into the fierce battles of the Trojan War, the Odyssey carries us on a quieter yet no less epic voyage. It tells the story of Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca, whose journey home stretches over 10 long years, marked by trials and wonders beyond imagination. Unlike the raw strength of warriors on the battlefield, Odysseus relies on wit, resourcefulness, and resilience to survive the obstacles fate throws in his path. Throughout his voyage, Odysseus encounters creatures and challenges that test both his body and spirit. He confronts the Cyclops Polyphemus, a giant with a single eye, whose brutal nature forces Odysseus to rely on cleverness to escape. He visits the sorceress Circe, who transforms men into animals but is eventually outwitted by Odysseus's resolve and his clever use of magic. The haunting sirens sing their irresistible song, luring sailors to destruction, but Odysseus's crew, ears blocked with beeswax, steers safely past. Storms sent by wrathful gods toss his ship mercilessly, yet Odysseus's determination never falters. Underlying these adventures is a profound longing, the desire to return to home, to his wife Penelope and their son Telemachus. Penelope embodies loyalty and patience, warding off suitors who believe Odysseus is lost forever. Their love becomes a beacon that guides Odysseus through darkness and despair. This enduring love, combined with the theme of cunning over brute force, elevates Odysseus's story to an archetype of human perseverance, intelligence, and the yearning for belonging. For centuries, the tales of Homer were shared orally, passed from one bard to another in lively gatherings across ancient Greece. It wasn't until the 6th century BCE, under the rule of Pisistratos in Athens, that these stories were formally compiled and codified in writing. This transition from oral performance to written text ensured their preservation and wider dissemination, cementing their place in human history. The Iliad and the Odyssey became the foundational texts of Western literature, inspiring the genres of drama and poetry. They introduced the concept of the epic, vast heroic narratives that explore human virtues, flaws, and the complex relationship between mortals and the divine. Their influence is felt not only in literature, but in art, philosophy, and cultural identity, echoing through the works of Virgil, Shakespeare, and countless others. Beyond their historical significance, these epics provide timeless lessons about human nature, the dangers of pride, the power of resilience, and the value of cleverness and compassion. Their stories remain vibrant, inviting each generation to reflect on the joys and sorrows of the human experience. Now, imagine yourself on a moonlit shore of the Aegean Sea. A lone bard sits by a flickering fire, strumming a lyre softly, weaving the ancient tales of gods and heroes into gentle melodies. The waves lap quietly against the oars of a distant ship, where Odysseus sails steadily toward Ithaca, guided by stars and the steady pull of home. Let your breath flow with the rhythm of the sea, the ebb and flow of gentle tides carrying you toward rest. Each wave whispers a lullaby, each breath a soothing note in this timeless song. As your eyes grow heavy, allow the mysteries of Homer's epics to drift through your mind, softening, settling, and carrying you gently into the realm of dreams. The Bible, unlike many other influential texts, is not the product of a single author or era, but a vast and complex collection of writings that span centuries. Its origins trace back to the ancient Hebrew scriptures, composed and compiled between the 7th and 5th centuries BCE. These texts, known collectively as the Tanakh by Jewish tradition, consist of 3 parts: the Torah, the prophets, Nevi'im, and the writings, Ketuvim. The Torah, or Pentateuch, contains foundational stories of creation, law, and early Israelite history. The prophets offer both historical narrative and moral exhortations, while the writings include poetry, philosophy, and wisdom literature. Centuries later, within the 1st century CE, the Christian New Testament took shape, comprised of the Gospels, which recount the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, the epistles, letters offering guidance to early Christian communities, and the apocalyptic revelation, a vivid vision of the end times. These writings emerged between roughly 50 and 100 CE, reflecting a dynamic and diverse religious movement growing out of Jewish roots but reaching far beyond. Together, the Old and New Testaments form a spiritual and cultural cornerstone for billions across the world, shaping religious beliefs, moral codes, and cultural identities. Their layered histories reveal a tapestry of faith, struggle, and transformation that mirrors the human journey itself. Before the age of printing presses and bound books, sacred texts were preserved through painstaking oral and written traditions. The earliest biblical texts were transmitted orally, stories shared by word of mouth from generation to generation, in homes, synagogues, and communities. Eventually, scribes took up the task of committing these sacred words to material form, carefully copying them by hand on scrolls made of papyrus, a fragile plant-based material common in ancient Egypt and the Mediterranean. As time progressed, the shift from scrolls to codices, early bound books made from vellum or parchment, marked a significant innovation in how these texts were preserved and accessed. The codex format allowed for easier reference, portability, and durability, accelerating the spread of biblical literature. Translations also played a critical role in the dissemination and influence of the Bible. The Septuagint, a Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, completed around the 3rd century BCE in Alexandria, opened the door for Greek-speaking Jews and early Christians to engage with these sacred texts. Later, the Latin Vulgate, translated by St. Jerome in the late 4th century CE, became the authoritative text of Western Christianity for over a millennium, shaping theological discourse and worship across Europe. These transformations, from oral recitations to written scrolls, from scrolls to codices, and from one language to another, illustrate the living nature of the Bible as a text that adapts and endures, touching lives across different cultures and epochs. Its physical journey mirrors the spiritual journey it invites readers to embark upon, a journey through faith, history, and human understanding. At the heart of the Bible lie stories and teachings that have shaped not only religious faith, but also the moral and ethical foundations of entire civilizations. The Old Testament, deeply rooted in Jewish tradition, begins with a profound narrative of creation, an awe-inspiring act of divine will, bringing the universe, earth, and humanity into existence. This story of beginnings establishes the intimate relationship between creator and creation, setting the stage for the unfolding human saga. From there emerges the story of Exodus, where the Israelites' journey from slavery in Egypt to freedom in the Promised Land becomes a powerful symbol of liberation and divine justice. Led by Moses, they receive laws and commandments that guide not just religious observance, but social ethics, principles of fairness, compassion, and community responsibility that resonate to this day. The prophets build on these themes, delivering messages of hope, warning, and call to righteousness amid tumultuous times, urging the people toward justice, mercy, and faithfulness. In the New Testament, the focus shifts to the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. His message of compassion, love for the marginalized, and the promise of redemption forms the core of Christian belief. The narratives of his crucifixion and resurrection encapsulate themes of sacrifice, forgiveness, and eternal hope. The New Covenant, as taught by Jesus and his apostles, invites believers into a transformative relationship with God, emphasizing grace and renewal over law alone. Together, these texts present a rich mosaic of morality and spirituality, tracing the human quest for meaning, connection, and salvation. The Bible's stories and commandments continue to inspire reflection on right living, justice, and the possibility of redemption, offering both challenge and comfort across centuries. The Bible's impact extends far beyond the walls of worship, permeating the very fabric of art, literature, music, and governance throughout history. For over 2 millennia, its narratives have inspired painters to capture biblical scenes in awe-inspiring works, composers to create sublime musical masterpieces, and writers to explore profound themes of faith, struggle, and humanity. Its moral teachings have influenced legal codes and ethical frameworks, laying foundations for justice systems that value human dignity and rights. Politicians and thinkers have drawn from its lessons to shape societies grounded in principles of compassion, responsibility, and the common good. A pivotal moment in its history came with the invention of the printing press, which brought the Gutenberg Bible in 1455. This was more than just a technological feat. It was a cultural revolution. For the first time, the Bible became widely accessible to ordinary people, no longer confined to clergy or the elite. This democratization of the word ignited religious reformations, empowered personal faith journeys, and fueled movements for literacy and education. The Bible remains a living text, continually reinterpreted and embraced by diverse communities worldwide. Its echoes in music, film, literature, and public discourse testify to its enduring power to shape hearts, minds, and civilizations. Now imagine yourself seated in an alabaster cathedral, bathed in the flickering glow of candlelight. The air is thick with quiet reverence as voices rise and fall, singing ancient words in a hush that seems to carry the weight of centuries. Psalms echo softly against vaulted stone ceilings, the melodies wrapping around you like a gentle embrace. In this sacred stillness, let the familiar psalm, Shepherd, rest in fields of green, drift through your mind. Feel the calm wash over you, the quiet assurance of guidance and peace settling deeply into your soul. Each breath grows slower, more measured, syncing with the serene rhythm of this timeless lullaby. As the voices fade, allow yourself to be cradled in the hush of history, the comfort of faith, and the promise of rest. Let your eyelids grow heavy, your thoughts soften, and your heart find its quiet beat, carrying you gently into the realm of peaceful sleep. Imagine a time so ancient that written history was just beginning to take form, an era where stories were etched into clay tablets, their symbols pressed carefully into soft surfaces with reed styluses, preserving for posterity the first great narrative of humanity. This is the world of the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest surviving pieces of literature, born from the bustling city of Uruk in ancient Sumer, present-day Iraq. Gilgamesh, the epic's hero, is no ordinary man. He is described as 2/3 divine and 1/3 mortal, a king of immense strength, courage, and ambition. Yet beneath his powerful exterior lies the universal human experience, struggles with mortality, the ache of loss, and the profound significance of friendship. The epic reveals a deeply human portrait of a ruler who wrestles with the boundaries of life and death, fame and obscurity, strength and vulnerability. The story unfolds on the walls of history through tablets inscribed in cuneiform, a wedge-shaped script painstakingly carved by scribes. These tablets were uncovered millennia later, dusted off in the 19th century, and became a window into a world where myth and reality blended seamlessly. Here, gods interact with humans, and heroes embark on quests that explore the very essence of what it means to be alive. The Epic of Gilgamesh begins with a restless king whose tyranny unsettles his people. To humble him, the gods create Enkidu, a wild man who becomes Gilgamesh's companion and equal. Their fierce friendship transforms Gilgamesh, revealing themes of loyalty, courage, and the pain of separation when Enkidu's fate takes a tragic turn. Through their bond, the epic speaks to the human need for connection and the heartbreak of loss. Enkidu's death propels Gilgamesh on a profound and poignant journey, an odyssey to find Utnapishtim, a sage who survived a great flood and was granted eternal life by the gods. This quest is more than a search for everlasting existence. It is a meditation on the inevitability of death and the meaning of a life well lived. As Gilgamesh traverses strange landscapes and overcomes formidable challenges, he reflects on the impermanence of human life and the legacy one leaves behind. The quest brings him face to face with universal truths. Mortality is inescapable, but the bonds of friendship, acts of courage, and the memories carried by those left behind offer a kind of immortality. Utnapishtim's story of the flood predates many later narratives and resonates deeply across cultures and religions, echoing the themes of destruction and renewal, judgment and mercy. Gilgamesh's acceptance of his mortal fate marks a turning point, a shift from despair to a quiet embrace of life's fleeting beauty. Through this ancient tale, we glimpse the earliest human attempts to grapple with questions that remain timeless. Why do we live? What is our place in the cosmos? How do we face the shadow of death? The Epic of Gilgamesh, preserved on clay but alive in its wisdom, continues to inspire reflection on the profound mysteries of existence. The story of the Epic of Gilgamesh might have been lost forever to the shifting sands of time had it not been for a remarkable rediscovery in the mid-19th century. In 1853, the British archaeologist Hormuzd Rassam unearthed a collection of clay tablets buried deep beneath the ancient ruins of Nineveh, once the flourishing capital of the Assyrian Empire. These tablets, inscribed in cuneiform script, contained fragments of a tale that would astonish the modern world, the long-forgotten Epic of Gilgamesh. For centuries, the narrative lay silent, buried beneath layers of history, a silent witness to a civilization long past. When scholars began painstakingly piecing the tablets together, they unveiled not just a story, but the world's first profound literary exploration of humanity's hopes, fears, and existential questions. The themes, friendship, mortality, the search for meaning, resonated across cultures and millennia, influencing great works that followed. The epic's echoes ripple through Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, with their heroic journeys and mortal dilemmas. Its flood narrative foreshadows stories found in the Bible and other religious traditions, marking it as a foundational thread woven through the fabric of human storytelling. The Epic of Gilgamesh is not merely an ancient artifact, it is humanity's earliest attempt to grapple with what it means to be human, the tension between divine aspiration and mortal limitation, the longing for lasting legacy, and the consolation found in companionship. Today, the tablets rest in the British Museum, where visitors can marvel at these physical links to our distant past, a testament to the enduring power of story. The epic's rediscovery opened a door into the shared heritage of human thought, inviting us to reflect on our own lives through the eyes of a king who journeyed beyond death to find wisdom. Now imagine yourself seated in a quiet chamber lit by the gentle flicker of an oil lamp. Its warm glow dances softly over the rough surfaces of ancient clay tablets, their inscriptions casting faint shadows that seem to whisper secrets from a time long past. In the distance, the muted sound of footsteps echoes faintly down a stone corridor within a towering ziggurat. The dust stirred lightly with each step, catching the lamplight like tiny stars suspended in the air. The vastness of the ancient structure envelopes you, a place where history breathes softly beneath your touch. As Gilgamesh, weary from his epic quest, rests in the quiet of this timeless space, feel your own heartbeat slow and steady, syncing with the rhythmic pulse of ancient wisdom held within these tablets. Let the gentle cadence of the past cradle your mind, each syllable a soothing lullaby. Close your eyes and allow yourself to drift, wrapped in the comforting stillness of a story that has traveled through millennia to reach you, a tender reminder that the questions we carry are not ours alone, but shared across the ages. In this sacred quiet, let the echoes of Gilgamesh's journey guide you gently into sleep. Picture Florence in the early 14th century, a city alive with political unrest, artistic awakening, and religious fervor. It was here that Dante Alighieri, a poet, philosopher, and exile, undertook the monumental task of writing the Divine Comedy, a work that would forever transform literature and spirituality. Beginning around 1308, Dante crafted this epic poem in Tuscan Italian, elevating the vernacular language from everyday speech to the realm of the sublime. His choice was revolutionary. Until then, Latin had dominated scholarly and literary works. By writing in the common tongue, Dante opened the gates of poetic and theological reflection to a wider audience, creating a new cultural foundation for the Italian Renaissance to flourish. The Divine Comedy is not just a story, but a spiritual pilgrimage, a voyage through the realms beyond death. It is divided into three parts: Inferno, Hell, Purgatorio, Purgatory, and Paradiso, Paradise. Each section unfolds a unique landscape of the afterlife, populated by souls reflecting on justice, redemption, and divine grace. Dante's journey begins in a dark forest, symbolic of sin and confusion, from which he is rescued by the Roman poet Virgil, who represents human reason and classical wisdom. Together, they descend through the 9 circles of hell, witnessing the punishments of sinners tailored to their earthly transgressions. Following this descent, Dante and Virgil ascend Mount Purgatory, where souls undergo purification through trials and repentance. Here, the atmosphere shifts from despair to hope, reflecting the soul's progress towards spiritual renewal. At the summit, Virgil's guidance ends, and Beatrice, Dante's idealized symbol of divine love, takes over as his guide through the 9 celestial spheres of heaven. Beatrice's presence elevates the journey from reason alone to the transcendence of divine enlightenment and mystical union. This trilogy offers a richly layered allegory, not only for the soul's path toward God, but also a commentary on politics, morality, and human nature. Dante's contemporaries and historical figures appear throughout, casting light on virtues and vices alike, making the Divine Comedy a living tapestry of medieval life and thought. The Divine Comedy is meticulously structured with 100 cantos, 33 for each part, plus an introductory canto, each echoing a harmonious numerical design reflecting medieval cosmology and Christian theology. The journey through hell is divided into 9 circles, each designated for different categories of sin, from the limbo of virtuous non-Christians to the frozen lake of traitors at the deepest pit. The torments are not arbitrary, but symbolic reflections of the sins themselves, enforcing the idea of divine justice, or contrapasso, where punishment mirrors the nature of the crime. Purgatory consists of 7 terraces, each purifying a particular vice, such as pride, envy, or sloth. Souls here are engaged in active repentance, hopeful and striving toward forgiveness. This stage emphasizes the possibility of redemption and the mercy of God, offering a stark contrast to the irrevocable condemnations of hell. Finally, Paradise ascends through 9 celestial spheres, each governed by angels and inhabited by blessed souls who embody virtues and divine wisdom. These spheres represent the celestial hierarchy culminating in the Empyrean, the dwelling place of God. The journey ends in a sublime vision of the divine essence, a moment of ecstatic illumination where Dante glimpses the unity of all creation. Throughout the Divine Comedy, Dante's guides embody important philosophical principles. Virgil's reason is unable to penetrate heaven, and Beatrice's love completes the ascent, symbolizing the fusion of intellect and divine grace necessary for salvation. The poem intertwines classical philosophy with Christian doctrine, bridging the human and the divine in a vision of cosmic order. Dante's cosmology reflects the medieval understanding of the universe, yet its profound exploration of justice, love, and transformation transcends time, resonating still as a poetic and spiritual masterpiece that invites us to contemplate our own journeys through life, death, and beyond. Dante's Divine Comedy is much more than a spiritual odyssey. It is a profound moral and political critique woven intricately into the fabric of his poetic journey. The work serves as a mirror reflecting the societal tensions and ethical dilemmas of early 14th century Italy, a time rife with political strife, papal conflicts, and social upheaval. Dante populates his underworld and heavenly realms with vivid portraits of contemporaries, popes, emperors, poets, and politicians, assigning each a place according to their earthly actions and moral character. In Inferno, many of those condemned to the lower circles are figures from Florence and broader Italy, whose ambitions, betrayals, or corruption Dante condemns. The poem's pages are filled with scathing portrayals of religious leaders who have strayed from virtue, political enemies whom Dante saw as threats to the Republic, and others whose pride, greed, or deceit earned them eternal punishment. Conversely, in Paradiso, he celebrates the virtuous and wise, from saints to philosophers, casting a hopeful light on divine justice and ultimate redemption. This layering of real historical personalities creates a dynamic dialogue about power and morality, illustrating the conflict between church and state that was especially heated in Dante's time. The Pope's temporal authority was contested, and Italy was fragmented among warring city-states. Dante himself was exiled from Florence, a personal exile that adds a poignant undercurrent of longing and loss throughout the narrative. The poem grapples with questions of rightful governance, justice, and the individual's place in the cosmic order, offering not just a vision of the afterlife, but a guide to ethical living in the present world. Themes of sin and redemption run deep, with allegories that reveal human failings and divine mercy. Dante's moral vision insists that free will and responsibility shape the soul's destiny, and that true understanding arises from self-awareness and repentance. The tension between earthly power and spiritual truth is a continual thread, inviting readers to reflect on their own lives, choices, and values. The Divine Comedy's impact on literature and culture is immeasurable. By choosing to write in Tuscan Italian, Dante played a pivotal role in standardizing the Italian language, elevating it from regional dialects to a literary and cultural lingua franca. This linguistic choice helped unify Italy's diverse voices and inspired generations of writers, poets, and thinkers across Europe. Dante's vivid imagery, complex symbolism, and profound philosophical insights sparked the imagination of Renaissance luminaries such as Petrarch and Boccaccio, who furthered the revival of classical learning and humanist values. His influence crossed national boundaries, reaching English poets like John Milton, who echoed Dante's epic scope and spiritual vision in Paradise Lost. The Divine Comedy's combination of epic poetry, allegory, and theological reflection set a new standard for literary achievement, shaping the course of Western literature for centuries. More than a book, Dante's work is a cultural milestone, an artistic synthesis of medieval knowledge and Renaissance aspiration, bridging classical antiquity and modern thought. Its themes of journey, transformation, and the search for meaning continue to resonate deeply, inspiring artists, scholars, and dreamers alike. Imagine whispering pines softly swaying on the gentle slopes of purgatory, their needles catching the cool dawn light. The morning star rises slowly, its gentle glow unfolding across the heavens as the air thins with each step upward. As Dante ascends this sacred mountain, let your own thoughts rise, weightless and free, drifting through the quiet spaces between breath and dream. Feel the cool air fill your lungs, the stillness of the early light wrapping you in calm. Let the serenity of this divine journey carry you gently into rest, where the soul's ascent transforms into peaceful sleep. Here, in the hush of dawn, the journey inward and upward becomes a lullaby, soft, enduring, and full of promise. The dawn of the 17th century in Spain marked a period known as the Spanish Golden Age, a flourishing of arts, literature, and culture set against a backdrop of political power and religious fervor. It was during this vibrant era that Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra penned Don Quixote, a novel that would come to define modern fiction and forever reshape the literary landscape. The first part appeared in 1605, met with enthusiasm and curiosity, followed a decade later by a sequel in 1615 that cemented its place as a cornerstone of world literature. At the heart of this sprawling work is Alonso Quijano, a modest hidalgo driven to madness by his obsession with chivalric romances. Believing himself to be a knight-errant, Quijano adopts the name Don Quixote and sets out to revive knightly ideals in a world that has largely moved on. Alongside him rides Sancho Panza, a loyal yet pragmatic squire whose earthy wisdom and comic sensibility balance the idealistic delusions of his master. Together, they traverse the Spanish countryside, encountering a series of adventures that are as much about the clash between fantasy and reality as they are about humor and human nature. Don Quixote embodies the spirit of the Golden Age, reflecting the tensions of a society caught between old and new, between fading medieval values and emerging modernity. Cervantes' novel captures the complexity of a changing world, simultaneously celebrating and critiquing the dreams that define human experience. What began as a playful parody of the wildly popular chivalric romances quickly evolved into a literary masterpiece that transcended its satirical origins. Cervantes cleverly uses Don Quixote's delusions to poke fun at the exaggerated tales of knights, giants, and enchanted castles that were beloved by readers but increasingly seen as outdated. One of the most famous scenes captures this perfectly. Don Quixote charges at windmills, convinced they are ferocious giants, his lance raised in righteous battle. This image has become a symbol not only of folly, but of unyielding idealism confronting a harsh reality. Throughout the novel, inns are mistaken for castles, peasants for kings, and everyday objects take on mythic significance. Cervantes explores the tension between illusion and reality, questioning the nature of truth and the power of perception. This theme resonates deeply, inviting readers to consider how stories shape our understanding of the world and ourselves. The relationship between Don Quixote and Sancho Panza also embodies this duality, idealism tempered by pragmatism, dreams balanced by practical wisdom. Their dialogue and companionship reveal layers of humanity, humor, and philosophy, making the novel much more than a mere comedy. Above all, Don Quixote is a meditation on storytelling itself. Cervantes breaks the fourth wall, acknowledging the act of reading and writing within the narrative, a technique that anticipates modern metafiction. The novel challenges the reader to question what is real and what is constructed, how narratives shape identity, and how hope can persist even in the face of disillusionment. In this way, Don Quixote became the blueprint for the modern novel, blending humor, tragedy, philosophy, and social commentary. It influenced countless writers from Shakespeare to Molière, Balzac to Kafka, and its echoes remain present in literature to this day. As you drift into the world of Cervantes' creation, consider the joyful complexity of human dreams, the laughter and the longing, and prepare to be gently carried into a sleep where windmills turn softly into stars and imagination knows no limits. Don Quixote stands as a revolutionary work in the history of literature, widely regarded as the birth of the modern novel. Unlike earlier narratives, which often followed straightforward plots or mythic structures, Cervantes's masterpiece introduced a new self-awareness and complexity to storytelling. It is one of the first fully metafictional works, meaning that it acknowledges its own nature as a story. Readers encounter characters who are aware of their own stories, who read about themselves within the narrative, creating layers of reflection and irony that were unprecedented at the time. This innovative approach invites the audience to engage not just with the events of the story, but with the very act of storytelling itself. Cervantes playfully questions what is real and what is imagined, blurring the lines between the author's world and the reader's. The novel's characters discuss books they have read and even confront others who try to write about Don Quixote's adventures, making the narrative a conversation across texts and times. This self-consciousness had a profound impact on the development of literature. Don Quixote influenced an array of writers and dramatists who followed, from the poetic depth of Shakespeare to the comedic brilliance of Molière. Balzac's intricate social novels, as well as the psychological complexity found in later novelists, owe a debt to Cervantes' pioneering blend of realism, fantasy, and critical insight. The novel's reach extends beyond literature into broader culture, shaping the way stories are told and understood in the Western tradition. The themes of illusion and reality, the tension between ideals and pragmatism, and the questioning of identity continue to resonate through centuries of storytelling. Cervantes' work reminds us that fiction is not merely entertainment, but a mirror reflecting the human condition, capable of exploring truths that transcend time and place. Don Quixote's legacy is immense. It forged the path for novels as we know them today, complex, self-aware, rich with voice and perspective. Its influence endures in every page turned, every story told, as the modern novel continually reimagines the boundaries of imagination and reality. Picture a dusty Castilian plain bathed in the golden light of a fading sunset. The air is warm and still, carrying the faint scent of earth and wildflowers. Against a weathered stable wall leans a rusted lance, its purpose long fulfilled but not forgotten. In this quiet moment, Don Quixote rests, his mind adrift in dreams where the impossible becomes gentle and kind. The towering windmills he once charged at with fierce resolve slowly transform, their blades turning softly, no longer giants to be battled, but stars twinkling in a vast, peaceful sky. As your breathing deepens, let your thoughts turn as gently as those windmills, spinning slowly into the calm night. Allow yourself to drift alongside Don Quixote into a realm where stories unfold like soft whispers and dreams carry you on gentle breezes. Here, in this space between wakefulness and sleep, the line between reality and imagination blurs, inviting peace and rest. Your heart beats in harmony with the rhythm of the plains, steady and sure, as stars begin to glow overhead. Let this tranquil vision cradle you, a lullaby woven from pages and dreams as you gently surrender to the night. In the year 1687, a monumental moment in human understanding unfolded with the publication of Isaac Newton's Philosophiæ, Naturalis, Principia, Mathematica, often simply called the Principia. This remarkable work laid the foundation for classical mechanics and forever changed how humanity perceives the universe. Newton, a brilliant mathematician and physicist, formulated the three laws of motion and the universal law of gravitation within its pages, transforming the landscape of science and philosophy alike. Newton's journey to this breakthrough was marked by both solitude and brilliance. During the plague years of 1665 to 1666, when Cambridge University was closed, Newton retreated to his family home in Woolsthorpe Manor. It was in this period of isolation that his most groundbreaking ideas took shape. His dedication to understanding the natural world was unyielding, blending meticulous observation with mathematical innovation. Not only did Newton describe how objects move and interact, but he also co-developed calculus, a new mathematical language essential for expressing these laws with precision. The Principia was not simply a scientific paper, it was a profound revolution in thinking. Newton dedicated the work to the Royal Society, England's foremost scientific institution, and received strong support from Edmund Halley, the astronomer who famously predicted the orbit of the comet now named after him. Halley recognized the importance of Newton's work and helped bring it to publication, ensuring that the ideas would reach a wider audience and secure their place in history. The Principia introduced a universe governed not by mysterious forces or whimsical gods, but by elegant, discoverable laws. Newton's vision was that of a cosmos operating like a vast, interconnected machine, where the same principles guiding the fall of an apple also dictated the movements of planets and stars. This was a radical departure from earlier Aristotelian views, where celestial bodies were thought to move in perfect divine circles, untouched by earthly laws. Newton bridged the heavens and earth, uniting the celestial with the terrestrial in a grand cosmic design. At the heart of Newton's masterpiece lie his three laws of motion, each a fundamental principle explaining how objects behave in our physical world. The first law, often called the law of inertia, states that an object at rest remains at rest, and an object in motion continues in motion with constant velocity unless acted upon by an external force. This principle clarified why things do not spontaneously start moving or stop without a cause. A revolutionary insight that overturned centuries of misunderstanding about motion. Newton's second law provides the quantitative description of motion. The force acting on an object is equal to its mass multiplied by its acceleration, F equals ma. This equation allows us to predict precisely how an object will move when a force is applied, laying the groundwork for everything from calculating the trajectory of a cannonball to designing modern machinery. The third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, reveals a symmetry in nature's interactions. When two objects push or pull on each other, their forces are equal in magnitude but opposite in direction, a concept that explains everything from walking to the flight of rockets. Beyond these laws of motion, Newton formulated the inverse square law of universal gravitation. This law states that every particle attracts every other particle with a force proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Whether it is the pull between the Earth and the Moon, or the force that makes an apple fall from a tree, this universal law describes it all. Newton's gravitational law unified our understanding of the cosmos. It explained the elliptical orbits of planets first described by Kepler and accounted for the tides and the behavior of comets. The Principia presented a universe where the same force governs both the heavens and the earth, a cosmos bound by laws accessible to human reason. This elegant framework endured for over 2 centuries, guiding scientists and thinkers through the Enlightenment and into the modern era. It formed the foundation upon which later luminaries like Euler, Lagrange, and Einstein built. Newton's work was not just a scientific milestone, it was a monumental step in humanity's quest to comprehend its place in the vastness of the universe. Tonight, as you settle into rest, imagine yourself in a silent observatory in Cambridge. The stars twinkle in candlelight, measured with quiet precision. Let your thoughts orbit gently like the planets themselves, caught in the soft gravitational pull of Newton's laws, each breath a slow and steady revolution. Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica did more than just explain motion and gravity. It fundamentally overturned the centuries-old Aristotelian worldview that had dominated science and philosophy since antiquity. Before Newton, Aristotle's physics held sway. Objects moved because of their natural place. Heavier things fell faster, and the heavens were realms of perfection, moving in unchanging circles, untouched by earthly forces. Newton's laws shattered these ideas, replacing them with a unified, predictive framework grounded in mathematics and experimentation. By describing the physical world through universal laws expressed in precise formulas, Newton established the foundations for modern physics. His work marked the birth of classical mechanics, a discipline that would explain the motions of everything from falling apples to the orbits of planets, from the swing of a pendulum to the trajectories of cannonballs. Newton's intellectual legacy did not end with him. His laws became the cornerstone upon which giants of science like Joseph Louis Lagrange and Leonhard Euler expanded mechanics into more advanced mathematical formulations. Their work further refined Newtonian mechanics, introducing powerful techniques like analytical mechanics that extended Newton's vision. Centuries later, Albert Einstein would revolutionize our understanding once more, showing that Newton's laws were an extraordinarily accurate approximation within certain limits, but giving way to relativity and quantum mechanics when approaching the cosmic or the minuscule. Yet even Einstein acknowledged Newton's monumental impact, famously saying, "If I have seen farther, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Newton's genius laid the groundwork, elevating human knowledge to new heights. Beyond physics, Newton's vision inspired the Enlightenment's confidence in reason and the scientific method. The idea that the universe operates according to discoverable laws ignited the pursuit of knowledge across disciplines, from chemistry and astronomy to biology and engineering. His work empowered humanity to shift from superstition and mysticism to empirical evidence and mathematical certainty. The Principia became a symbol of intellectual achievement, a beacon for curiosity and inquiry. Its influence rippled through centuries, shaping not only science but also philosophy, technology, and culture. It was a testament to what human minds can accomplish when guided by reason, observation, and imagination. Now, as you lie quietly, imagine yourself in a silent observatory nestled in Cambridge, the birthplace of this great scientific awakening. The soft glow of candlelight flickers against ancient manuscripts and telescopes polished by centuries of curious hands. Outside, stars shimmer, their light traveling through time and space to meet your gaze. Each star is measured with delicate precision, its position and movement recorded with reverence and care. Let your thoughts begin to orbit like planets around a gentle sun, pulled by an invisible gravity that softens each breath you take. Imagine your mind floating weightlessly among the constellations, tracing the paths Newton first began to describe. With every inhale, feel the calm balance of the universe settling within you. With every exhale, release tension, allowing yourself to drift in harmonious rhythm with the cosmic dance. The great laws that govern motion and space extend now to cradle your rest, turning your thoughts into soft orbits of peace and stillness. As the night deepens, let the quiet power of Newton's discoveries lull you closer to sleep. Each breath a gentle revolution, each heartbeat a steady pulse in the vast cosmos. In this moment, the universe is both immense and intimate, infinite yet tender, guiding you into dreams that are as boundless as the stars themselves. In the midst of the Enlightenment, a vibrant era of intellectual awakening spanning Europe in the 18th century, Adam Smith emerged as a towering figure who would forever change how we understand economies and societies. Born in Kirkcaldy, Scotland, in 1723, Smith's journey was marked by a relentless pursuit of knowledge, shaped by the philosophical and scientific revolutions of his time. His education at the University of Glasgow and later at Oxford imbued him with a deep appreciation for moral philosophy, ethics, and human behavior. Smith's magnum opus, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, published in 1776 in London, was more than a book. It was a foundational treatise that laid the groundwork for modern economic thought. At a time when economies were largely understood through mercantilism, which emphasized state control, accumulation of gold, and protectionism, Smith introduced revolutionary ideas that championed individual liberty, market dynamics, and the invisible forces driving wealth creation. In this groundbreaking work, Smith explored how nations grow rich, not through hoarding wealth or imposing heavy regulations, but through the collective actions of individuals pursuing their own interests within free markets. His analysis went beyond numbers and commerce. It was a deep exploration of human nature, societal cooperation, and the moral underpinnings of economic systems. The Wealth of Nations was published during a transformative time in Edinburgh and London, cities buzzing with intellectual salons, scientific societies, and political debates. Smith's ideas resonated with the spirit of inquiry that challenged old orthodoxies, offering a new lens to see the complex web of economic interactions shaping the modern world. One of the most famous concepts Smith introduced is the division of labor, famously illustrated with his example of a pin factory. Smith observed that when workers specialized in specific tasks, drawing wire, straightening it, cutting, and packaging, the overall productivity soared. This insight was profound. Specialization not only increased efficiency, but also stimulated innovation and economic growth. Smith argued that this division of labor was a natural extension of human tendencies to exchange and cooperate, which he believed were rooted in self-interest. He proposed that individuals, by pursuing their own goals, inadvertently contribute to the economic well-being of society, a phenomenon he famously termed the invisible hand. This metaphor captures how free markets, when left to operate with minimal interference, naturally allocate resources efficiently, balancing supply and demand. Challenging the prevailing mercantilist doctrine, Smith critiqued excessive government intervention, tariffs, and monopolies, which he saw as distortions that hindered economic development. Instead, he advocated for laissez-faire policies, allowing markets to operate with limited regulation while emphasizing the importance of competition to keep businesses honest and innovative. Smith's work also explored the role of capital accumulation, the importance of savings and investment, and the impact of taxation on growth. He recognized the need for some government functions, such as defense, justice, and public works, but argued that beyond these essential roles, economic freedom was the path to prosperity. The wealth of nations not only influenced economic policies in Britain, but laid the intellectual foundation for the Industrial Revolution, shaping capitalism and free market systems worldwide. Smith's ideas sparked debates about wealth, poverty, and social justice, engaging thinkers and policymakers across centuries. His pioneering work remains relevant today, echoing through contemporary discussions on globalization, trade, and economic inequality. At its heart, Smith's treatise is a meditation on how human self-interest, guided by moral considerations and social institutions, can create thriving societies where prosperity is shared and sustained. Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations did more than describe economic principles. It provided the blueprint for the capitalist systems that would transform societies across the globe. Its profound influence helped fuel the Industrial Revolution, a period that reshaped economies, technologies, and social structures in the 18th and 19th centuries. As factories rose, machines churned, and urban centers swelled, Smith's ideas about free markets and the division of labor found practical application, guiding policymakers and entrepreneurs alike. Smith's work crossed oceans and continents, inspiring political leaders and economists far beyond Britain's shores. Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of the United States, was deeply influenced by Smith's advocacy for individual liberty and free enterprise. Jefferson's vision for an America built on self-reliance and economic freedom mirrored Smith's principles, emphasizing limited government intervention and the power of commerce to uplift society. Across Europe, French economists like Jean-Baptiste Say and Frédéric Bastiat extended Smith's ideas, helping shape the classical liberalism that championed free trade, property rights, and constitutional government. Their work laid the groundwork for economic thought that challenged protectionist policies and royal monopolies, pushing for markets where innovation and competition could thrive. Throughout the 19th century, Smith's Wealth of Nations remained a cornerstone for liberal thinkers and policymakers who sought to balance economic growth with social progress. His insights into self-interest, tempered by morality, informed debates on labor laws, education, and the role of the state in safeguarding welfare without stifling freedom. Modern fiscal policies, taxation systems, and international trade agreements often trace their intellectual heritage back to Smith's vision of economic cooperation guided by the invisible hand. Even in today's globalized world, where markets are interconnected and complexities abound, the fundamental principles he laid out continue to guide economic analysis and policy-making. Yet Smith's legacy is not without criticism. Discussions around wealth inequality, market failures, and environmental sustainability invite reflection on the limits and responsibilities of capitalism, a conversation that Smith himself might have welcomed given his nuanced views on ethics and society. His work endures as a reminder that economies are not mere machines, but living systems shaped by human behavior, institutions, and moral considerations. Through centuries, The wealth of nations remains a lantern illuminating the path of economic thought, a testament to how ideas can ripple through history to shape the world we live in. Imagine yourself in a dimly lit study, a sanctuary of calm and contemplation. Parchment scrolls and quill-strewn pages scatter the oak desk, each mark a thought, a theory, a dream of prosperity and order. Outside, the soft rattle of a carriage passes on cobblestone streets, a gentle rhythm blending with the whisper of turning pages. Feel your breath settle into the steady ebb and flow of supply and demand, like a gentle tide that balances the shores of your mind. The invisible hand of calm guides your thoughts, smoothing the crests of anxiety and filling the valleys of tension with stillness. Let the economy of your breath balance. Inhale opportunity, exhale release. As your heartbeat slows, your mind settles into the quiet harmony of markets at rest, where equilibrium holds and dreams of abundance flow softly like a lullaby. Good night, dear dreamer. Let the gentle currents of thought and calm carry you into the peaceful realm of sleep. In the year 1848, Europe was a continent simmering with unrest, poised on the edge of sweeping political upheaval. The old order, monarchies, aristocracies, and rigid class structures was being challenged by burgeoning movements of workers, intellectuals, and revolutionaries. It was in this charged atmosphere that the Communist Manifesto was born, a pamphlet commissioned by the Communist League, a secret society of radical thinkers seeking to transform society. Penned by two extraordinary minds, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, the Manifesto was published in London, far from the turmoil of continental revolutions. Engels, the son of a wealthy bourgeois industrialist, and Marx, a philosopher and disinherited Hegelian scholar, united their voices to call for a new social order. Their backgrounds, Engels' proximity to wealth and Marx's intellectual radicalism, combined to create a powerful critique of capitalism that was both deeply analytical and passionately revolutionary. The Manifesto arrived as a clarion call amidst widespread revolts and social upheavals sweeping through France, Germany, Italy, and beyond. It was not just a political pamphlet, but a theoretical framework rooted in a materialist view of history. Marx and Engels argued that history is a series of class struggles, a continuous conflict between those who own the means of production, the bourgeoisie, and those who sell their labor, the proletariat. The opening lines of the Manifesto are among the most famous in political literature. A spectre is haunting Europe, the spectre of communism. This phrase encapsulates the sense of foreboding and inevitability that Marx and Engels saw in the rising tide of class conflict. The bourgeoisie had built an economic system based on exploitation, consolidating wealth and power, while the proletariat labored under increasingly harsh conditions. Marx and Engels analyzed how capitalism created not only vast wealth, but also deep inequality and alienation. The workers were not merely poor, they were estranged from the fruits of their labor, treated as mere cogs in the capitalist machine. The Manifesto declared that this system was unsustainable and would inevitably be overthrown by a proletarian revolution. At its heart, the Manifesto laid out a radical vision, the abolition of private property as it related to the means of production, factories, land, machinery. This was not a call for the end of personal belongings, but for a society where resources and production were collectively owned and democratically controlled. The goal was to create a classless society, free from exploitation, where the wealth generated by labor would benefit all. The Manifesto did not shy away from the challenges this vision entailed. It called for the overthrow of capitalist systems through revolutionary means, recognizing that entrenched powers would resist. But it also spoke to workers' empowerment, international solidarity, and the need for systemic change rather than mere reform. The Communist Manifesto was more than a political tract. It was a blueprint for transformation that challenged the social, economic, and political fabric of its time. Its influence was immediate and enduring, inspiring revolutions, political parties, and intellectual debates that reshaped the world. The Communist Manifesto's reach extended far beyond its 1848 origins, becoming a seminal text that inspired some of the most transformative and turbulent events of the 20th century. Its call for class struggle and revolution resonated deeply in a world marked by rapid industrialization, urbanization, and social upheaval. The Russian Revolution of 1917 stands as one of the most significant historical moments shaped by Marx and Engels' ideas. The overthrow of the Tsarist regime and the rise of the Bolsheviks under Lenin ushered in the first communist state, attempting to build a society grounded in the Manifesto's vision. Similarly, in China, Mao Zedong adapted Marxist principles to the conditions of a largely agrarian society, leading a revolution that would transform the world's most populous nation. Cuba's revolution in 1959, led by Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, was also deeply influenced by communist ideology, seeking to overturn colonial and capitalist legacies in the Caribbean. Yet the legacy of the Communist Manifesto is complex and contested. While it laid the intellectual foundation for movements advocating equality, social justice, and workers' rights, the outcomes of many Marxist-inspired revolutions were fraught with contradictions. The pursuit of utopian ideals often collided with harsh realities. Authoritarianism, repression, economic difficulties, and human rights abuses became associated with some regimes claiming to embody Marxist thought. Critics argue that the Manifesto's vision was idealistic, underestimating the challenges of governance and the risks of concentrated power. Supporters maintain that the Manifesto's core critique of capitalism's inequalities remains relevant, highlighting systemic issues of wealth disparity, labor exploitation, and social injustice. Debates over its meaning and application continue to shape political discourse worldwide. Despite controversy, the Communist Manifesto endures as a powerful symbol of resistance and a call to reimagine social relations. Its language and ideas echo through history, inspiring movements for workers' rights, anti-colonial struggles, and contemporary critiques of neoliberal globalization. Whether seen as a blueprint for liberation or a cautionary tale, its impact is undeniable. Imagine a dimly lit room in moonlit England, where the quiet hum of a printing press fills the air, a rhythmic pulse of ink meeting paper, each sheet carrying the words that have stirred nations. Outside, candle-lit carts trundle softly along cobblestone streets, distributing copies under the watchful eyes of shadowed figures. With every turn of a page, feel the weight of centuries of conflict and aspiration begin to lift. Let the dense history of struggle and revolution dissolve gently, replaced by the calm of a night untroubled by upheaval. The flicker of lantern light casts soft shadows, and the scent of old paper mingles with cool night air. As you breathe slowly, imagine your mind releasing the burdens of discord, surrendering to the quiet hush that settles over the world when voices soften and streets empty. Let the cadence of whispered words become a lullaby, guiding you toward peaceful rest. With each exhale, sink deeper into the stillness, cradled by the echoes of hope and the promise of renewal. Tonight, leave behind the weight of history's battles and drift into a quiet, healing sleep, wrapped in the gentle embrace of understanding and calm. In the early 1830s, a young naturalist named Charles Darwin embarked on a voyage that would forever alter humanity's understanding of life on Earth. As a gentleman naturalist aboard HMS Beagle, Darwin's journey took him around the globe, but it was the remote Galapagos Islands that captured his scientific imagination and planted the seeds of a revolutionary theory. The Beagle's circumnavigation lasted nearly 5 years, during which Darwin collected an astonishing variety of specimens, plants, animals, fossils, and rocks, from continents and islands alike. Yet, the Galapagos Archipelago, a cluster of volcanic islands off the coast of Ecuador, stood out for its remarkable biodiversity and isolation. Darwin observed how species on different islands exhibited subtle variations. Finches, for instance, had differently shaped beaks adapted to their specific diets, from cracking nuts to catching insects, suggesting a pattern of adaptation to distinct environments. He collected detailed notes and specimens, fascinated by these clues to nature's diversity. Beyond the finches, Darwin documented unique tortoises, mockingbirds, and marine life, each adapted to island conditions. These observations challenged existing ideas of fixed, unchanging species and hinted at a dynamic natural world shaped by environmental pressures. Alongside biological specimens, Darwin took careful note of geology, the volcanic origins of the islands, the layering of rocks, and evidence of uplift and erosion. This interdisciplinary approach helped him conceive of Earth as a place of slow, continuous change, a vast laboratory for evolutionary processes. The Galapagos voyage was a crucible for Darwin's evolving thoughts, providing empirical evidence that species might not be immutable, but rather subject to change and diversification. These ideas would eventually lead him to formulate a bold explanation for how species evolve through natural forces over time. More than 2 decades after returning from the Beagle voyage, Darwin published On the Origin of Species, a groundbreaking work that introduced the theory of natural selection to the world. Its core premise was simple, yet profound. Species evolve descent with modification, where favorable traits become more common across generations because they enhance survival and reproduction. Darwin described natural selection as a mechanism explaining adaptation, speciation, and extinction, fundamental processes shaping the diversity of life. Individuals with traits best suited to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing those traits on. Over long periods, this leads to the gradual transformation of species. The phrase "survival of the fittest," popularized later by Herbert Spencer, captures this idea, though Darwin's focus was on reproductive success rather than mere physical strength. Fitness meant the ability to thrive in a particular niche, whether through camouflage, speed, resistance to disease, or behavioral strategies. Darwin's theory challenged traditional views rooted in creationism and static species concepts, proposing a dynamic, naturalistic explanation for life's complexity. It sparked debates across science, religion, and philosophy, revolutionizing biology and laying the foundation for genetics, ecology, and evolutionary psychology. On the origin of species, detailed evidence from fossils, comparative anatomy, embryology, and biogeography. Darwin argued convincingly that all living organisms share common ancestry, diverging through incremental change driven by environmental pressures. The book did not attempt to answer all questions, notably lacking a mechanism for heredity, which Gregor Mendel's later work would address. Yet it opened a new paradigm, inviting inquiry and reshaping humanity's place in nature. Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species was met with a mix of awe, skepticism, and outright opposition when it appeared in 1859. Its bold challenge to creationist views that species were fixed and individually created by divine intervention sparked fierce debates that reverberated far beyond the scientific community. The idea that humans shared common ancestry with other animals unsettled many religious institutions, which perceived the theory as a direct threat to foundational beliefs about humanity's special place in the cosmos. Clergy and theologians argued that Darwin's naturalistic explanation undermined faith and moral order. Yet some religious thinkers sought to reconcile evolution with their beliefs, seeing it as a divine mechanism rather than a contradiction. Scientific circles grappled with the implications as well. While many biologists recognized the explanatory power of natural selection, others criticized the lack of a clear mechanism for inheritance, which was unknown until Gregor Mendel's principles of genetics were rediscovered decades later. Some favored alternative theories like Lamarckism, which proposed the inheritance of acquired traits. Philosophers and social thinkers pondered what Darwin's ideas meant for human nature, society, and ethics. The concept of survival and competition in nature influenced emerging fields such as sociology and psychology, though often misapplied or misunderstood, sometimes to justify harsh social policies under the banner of social Darwinism, a distortion not advocated by Darwin himself. Over time, the scientific evidence mounted in support of evolution. Fossil discoveries filled gaps in the geological record. Genetic research revealed the molecular basis of inheritance. Studies of animal behavior and ecology expanded understanding of natural selection's scope. Evolution became a unifying framework for modern biology, guiding research from microbiology to conservation. Darwin's theory also revolutionized how humanity views itself, no longer as separate from nature, but as part of a vast, interconnected tree of life shaped by natural processes over eons. This shift has profound philosophical and ethical implications, fostering a sense of humility, curiosity, and stewardship. Today, evolution underpins diverse disciplines, from genetics to medicine, ecology to anthropology. It explains antibiotic resistance, guides biodiversity preservation, and informs our understanding of the mind and behavior. Darwin's legacy is not just a scientific theory, but a transformative lens through which we interpret the living world. Imagine a tranquil dawn breaking over the Galapagos Islands. The first soft light bathes volcanic rocks and shimmering shores in golden hues. Gentle waves lap rhythmically against the black sand beaches, their whispers mingling with the chorus of finches awakening to the new day. The air is fresh and filled with the subtle scent of salt and blooming wildflowers. From the dense brush, finches chirp melodiously, their songs weaving a delicate lullaby carried on the tropical breeze. Each call is a note in nature's symphony, a timeless melody echoing through the island's solitude. Visualize the small birds flitting between cacti and shrubs, their tiny feet touching leaves with the lightness of a feather. The gentle rustling of their wings blends with the slow sway of palm fronds, creating a peaceful rhythm that invites stillness and calm. As you breathe deeply, let your thoughts drift softly like seeds carried by the wind. Feel yourself becoming part of this serene landscape, your mind unfolding gently, evolving into quietude. With each breath, let the calm and continuity of life flow through you, weaving a gentle thread from past to present. Allow the waves ebb and flow to guide your heartbeat, steady and slow, as the ancient islands cradle you in their timeless embrace. Here, beneath the vast sky and whispering trees, the wisdom of evolution softly rocks you towards sleep. Rest now, dear dreamer, in the harmony of life's endless dance, where every creature, every breath is part of the unfolding story, a story carried gently on the winds of time. Picture a time long ago in ancient China, during the turbulent years known as the Spring and Autumn period. Kingdoms rose and fell, alliances shifted, and the fabric of society was woven with both conflict and aspiration. In the state of Lu, nestled in what is now modern Shandong province, a man named Confucius, later called Confucius, gathered students around him beneath the shade of ancient trees. Here, amid a world of uncertainty, Confucius sought to restore order and harmony through conversation, teaching, and reflection. Confucius was not a ruler nor a conqueror, but a teacher, a philosopher devoted to the cultivation of virtue and proper conduct. He traveled across the land, offering wisdom on how individuals and rulers alike might live with integrity, fairness, and respect for tradition. His words were not written down by Confucius himself, but were carefully recorded by his disciples, creating a compilation of aphorisms, dialogues, and teachings that would come to be known as the Analects. This collection offers insight into Confucius's vision of a well-ordered society based on moral principles. It emphasizes the importance of ritual propriety, which is not merely about ceremony, but the respectful and appropriate behavior that sustains social harmony. Through respectful rituals and proper conduct, individuals express their roles in family and society, reinforcing bonds and mutual obligations. At the heart of Confucius's teaching lie several core virtues that guide the path to ethical living and social cohesion. Ren is often translated as benevolence or humaneness. It describes an attitude of kindness, empathy, and compassion toward others. To cultivate Ren is to develop a genuine concern for the well-being of others, a quality that transforms personal relationships and governance alike. Yi means righteousness or moral uprightness. It is the inner compass that guides a person to do what is right, even when difficult. For Confucius, Yi is not just about external actions, but an expression of sincere intent aligned with justice. Li, as mentioned, is ritual propriety. It encompasses the ceremonies, manners, and customs that maintain social order. But beyond formality, Li fosters respect between individuals, especially in hierarchical relationships such as those between ruler and subject, parent and child, elder and younger. Ji is wisdom, the ability to discern right from wrong, to understand complex moral situations, and to apply knowledge thoughtfully. Wisdom tempers judgment with reflection, preventing rash or selfish decisions. Xin refers to integrity and faithfulness, the quality of being trustworthy and honest in word and deed. It ensures that promises and commitments hold true, building confidence within relationships. Among these virtues, jiao, or filial piety, stands as the foundation of Confucian ethics. It represents deep respect and devotion to one's parents and ancestors, anchoring family as the cornerstone of society. Through jiao, individuals learn discipline, gratitude, and care, values that ripple outward, influencing social interactions and governance. Together, these themes create a code for living that balances individual morality with communal responsibility. Confucius's vision was of a society where everyone, from the ruler to the commoner, acts with virtue, fulfilling their roles with respect and sincerity. His teachings aimed to heal divisions, inspire leaders, and nurture harmony amid the challenges of a changing world. The enduring influence of the Analects cannot be overstated. For centuries, they shaped the moral foundation of China and other East Asian cultures, influencing education, government, and family life. Even today, Confucius's words offer a gentle guide for living with integrity, kindness, and purpose in a complex world. Confucius's teachings did not remain confined to the borders of ancient Lu. Instead, they blossomed into the very foundation of East Asian civilization. Starting from the Han Dynasty, roughly 2 centuries after Confucius's lifetime, his Analects became central to the imperial civil service examinations, the rigorous tests that selected government officials based on merit and knowledge of Confucian classics. This system shaped China's bureaucratic structure for over 2 millennia, instilling Confucian ideals of virtue, loyalty, and duty at the heart of governance. The impact of Confucian thought extended far beyond China's Great Wall. Korea, Japan, and Vietnam adopted and adapted Confucian principles, integrating them deeply into their social, political, and educational systems. In Korea, the Joseon dynasty embraced Confucianism as the guiding ideology, influencing everything from court rituals to family hierarchy. Japan's Tokugawa shogunate similarly structured governance and social order around Confucian ethics, emphasizing respect, duty, and harmony. Vietnam wove Confucian ideals into its civil administration and cultural practices, balancing local traditions with these enduring moral teachings. While traditional Confucianism often conjures images of rigid social hierarchies and conservative roles, recent reinterpretations highlight its dynamic, progressive dimensions. Modern scholars emphasize Confucius's focus on moral self-cultivation, an individual's lifelong journey toward virtue, wisdom, and harmony. This emphasis resonates today as a call for personal responsibility, ethical leadership, and social engagement, transcending historical confines to offer guidance in contemporary life. Confucius's legacy in East Asia is not just a relic of the past, but a living tradition that continues to inspire and challenge. It shapes family values, educational ideals, and civic responsibilities, weaving a tapestry of connection and respect that endures in a rapidly changing world. Imagine a quiet courtyard bathed in the soft glow of flickering candlelight. Around a small fire, students sit cross-legged, their eyes attentive and calm as they listen to their master's gentle voice. The night is alive with the distant song of crickets, a natural symphony blending with whispered wisdom. Each aphorism spoken drops like a pebble into a still pond, sending ripples of meaning outward before fading into serene silence. The wisdom of centuries gently settles around you, soothing the mind and quieting the heart. As your breathing slows Let Confucius's teaching of serenity in duty guide you into peaceful rest. Feel the weight of daily cares lift away, replaced by a calm sense of purpose and belonging. In this tranquil moment, drift gently towards sleep, wrapped in the timeless embrace of harmony and virtue. In the vibrant and tumultuous heart of Renaissance Florence, Niccolò Machiavelli penned The Prince in 1513, a time when the city was a crucible of artistic brilliance and political intrigue. Having recently fallen out of favor with the powerful Medici family, who had reclaimed control over Florence, Machiavelli found himself sidelined from the very political stage where he once played an active role. It was during this period of exile and reflection that he composed The Prince, dedicating it to Lorenzo de' Medici, in hopes of regaining favor and offering pragmatic advice on rulership. Unlike the lofty ideals common in earlier political treatises, The Prince stood out for its direct, sometimes ruthless practicality. It wasn't a philosophical meditation on how rulers ought to behave in an ideal world, but rather a blunt manual on the realities of power, how to acquire it, how to keep it, and how to wield it effectively amidst the chaos of human nature and political competition. Drawing on examples from history, both classical and contemporary, Machiavelli dissected the actions of rulers and condottieri, mercenary leaders, providing guidance grounded in realpolitik rather than morality or ethics. Florence itself, with its volatile mix of republican ideals and the resurgence of Medici autocracy, served as a living laboratory for Machiavelli's observations. His experiences navigating shifting alliances, conspiracies, and the fragile balance between popular support and military might gave The Prince its unique edge. The treatise marked a turning point in political thought, pivoting from the medieval focus on divine right and virtue to an analysis of power as a dynamic and often ruthless game. One of the most enduring and controversial interpretations of The Prince is encapsulated in the phrase, "The ends justify the means." While Machiavelli never explicitly wrote these words, the concept permeates his counsel to rulers, leading many to view him as an advocate of ruthless pragmatism without moral restraint. However, the reality is more nuanced and deserves careful exploration. Machiavelli advises rulers to balance cruelty and mercy with skill and necessity. He recognizes that while cruelty may be needed to establish order or suppress dissent, it must be exercised wisely, sparingly, and with a clear purpose, to secure power and peace. Excessive cruelty breeds hatred and instability, whereas well-measured firmness can command respect and ensure loyalty. This pragmatic approach separates appearance from reality, emphasizing that rulers must carefully manage their reputation to maintain authority, even if their true actions are more complex or harsh behind the scenes. Central to Machiavelli's thought is the interplay of virtù and fortuna. Virtù is often translated as strength, skill, or prowess, the qualities a leader cultivates through intelligence, courage, and decisiveness. Fortuna, by contrast, represents luck, chance, or the unpredictable forces of fate. Machiavelli acknowledges that fortune plays a significant role in success, but insists that strong virtue enables a ruler to shape circumstances and respond to changing fortunes decisively. This worldview underscores the need for adaptability. Rulers must be shrewd enough to change tactics and personas as situations demand. The appearance of morality, honesty, generosity, piety can be a tool for political survival even if the ruler's true motives differ. Machiavelli famously argues that it is safer for a prince to be feared than loved if he cannot be both, but he warns against inciting hatred. Through these lessons, the prince presents power not as a sacred trust bound by moral absolutes, but as a complex, often precarious enterprise where survival and stability require shrewdness, pragmatism, and sometimes morally ambiguous decisions. This frank, sometimes cynical analysis revolutionized political thought, laying the groundwork for modern political realism. Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince left a profound and lasting imprint on political thought, its impact resonating far beyond the Renaissance courts of Italy. Over time, the term Machiavellian emerged, often wielded pejoratively to describe cunning, deceitful, and unscrupulous political behavior. This label, though sometimes oversimplified, testifies to the enduring association of Machiavelli with realpolitik, the ruthless and pragmatic exercise of power divorced from traditional moral constraints. Machiavelli's insights form the intellectual foundation for modern political realism, influencing thinkers who sought to understand politics as it is, not as it ought to be. His frank acknowledgement of human nature's flaws, self-interest, ambition, fear, challenged earlier idealistic or religious conceptions of governance. Instead, he proposed that effective rulers must navigate a world of competing interests, shifting alliances, and unpredictable fortune, requiring a mastery of power dynamics rather than mere virtue. This approach deeply influenced seminal political philosophers like Thomas Hobbes, whose Leviathan expanded on Machiavelli's vision of authority, advocating for a strong sovereign to prevent the chaos of the state of nature. Hobbes's view of political order as a necessary means to curb humanity's brutish tendencies echoes Machiavelli's pragmatism. Similarly, Jean-Jacques Rousseau engaged with Machiavellian ideas, though often critically. Rousseau's writings on the social contract and popular sovereignty presented an alternative vision of legitimate power derived from the collective will rather than individual cunning. Yet even Rousseau's theories exist in dialogue with Machiavelli's realism, highlighting enduring tensions between ideals and political necessity. Modern policymakers and political scientists have continued to grapple with Machiavelli's legacy. His work is studied not only as a historical document, but as a mirror reflecting the complexities of power, strategy, and governance in contemporary times. Debates persist about whether The Prince serves as a cynical manual, encouraging manipulation, or a sober, realistic analysis that helps leaders understand the world's inherent challenges. Beyond theory, Machiavelli's influence is evident in practical statecraft. Diplomacy, military strategy, intelligence, and political negotiation often draw upon principles he elucidated centuries ago. His ideas encourage vigilance against naive idealism, emphasizing instead the importance of adaptability, perception management, and decisiveness. The controversy around Machiavelli also invites reflection on the ethical dimensions of leadership. While some condemn his apparent endorsement of deception, others argue that recognizing human complexity and the harsh realities of politics need not preclude ethical governance. Indeed, Machiavelli himself acknowledged that cruelty and dishonesty could be necessary but should never be excessive or self-defeating. Ultimately, Machiavelli's enduring significance lies in his unflinching exploration of power's nature, its temptations, dangers, and demands. His work remains a crucial reference point for anyone seeking to understand how leaders maintain authority amid the often turbulent currents of human affairs. Imagine the moonlight casting silver shadows over the ancient battlements of Florence. The city lies cloaked in silence, save for the distant flicker of torchlight dancing upon the Medici banners that still flutter softly in the night breeze. The streets are empty, the marketplace stalls shuttered, and the gentle hum of life has slowed to a peaceful whisper. Inside a dimly lit chamber, Machiavelli dips his ink-stained quill one last time, sealing the parchment with the weight of his thoughts. The scroll rests gently on the table as he closes his eyes, weary from hours of reflection and writing. Outside, a watchman's slow footsteps echo through the empty stone corridors, the only sound breaking the stillness. As the city slumbers beneath a star-studded sky, let your own ambitions and concerns begin to rest. Tonight, release the need for strategy or control. There is no game to play, no power to wield. Let the sharp edges of politics soften into shadows, and allow your mind to drift into the calm of peaceful repose. Feel the steady rhythm of your breath, as steady as the watchman's footsteps. The pulse of the city's history hums quietly, a reminder that even the mightiest plans must pause with the turning of the night. Let the wisdom of stillness wash over you, carrying you gently towards sleep. Good night, dear dreamer. In the silence of this Florence night, find rest, not in conquest or control, but in the peace of letting go. In the heart of late 18th century London, amid the bustling streets shadowed by the grandeur of Enlightenment ideals, a quiet but revolutionary voice rose to challenge prevailing notions about women and their place in society. Mary Wollstonecraft, a writer and philosopher, published A Vindication of the Rights of Woman in 1792, a groundbreaking treatise that would become foundational in feminist thought and advocacy. The world Wollstonecraft inhabited was one of contradictions. The Enlightenment championed reason, liberty, and progress, ideas that promised to reshape society along more just and rational lines. Yet, in the midst of this intellectual awakening, the status of women remained shackled by deep-rooted social, legal, and cultural restrictions. Women were largely excluded from education and public life, regarded as naturally inferior and destined for domestic subservience. Wollstonecraft's work directly confronted this paradox. She argued passionately that women were not born inherently less rational or capable than men. Instead, she asserted, their apparent inferiority was a product of systematic denial of education and opportunity. Without access to learning and intellectual cultivation, women were left dependent, passive, and relegated to superficial roles. Her writing was a call to arms, intellectual and moral, to challenge the status quo and to expand the horizons of what women could achieve. Wollstonecraft envisioned a society where women received the same education as men, allowing them to develop reason, virtue, and independence. Education, she believed, was the key to unlocking women's potential, enabling them to contribute meaningfully to family, society, and the nation. Wollstonecraft's arguments were both radical and measured. She did not seek to overthrow social order abruptly, but to infuse it with reason and justice. Central to her thesis was the belief that co-education, boys and girls learning together, would foster mutual respect and understanding between the sexes, breaking down barriers of prejudice and ignorance. She criticized influential thinkers of her time, notably Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who viewed women primarily as companions to men, existing to please and serve rather than to think and lead. Wollstonecraft challenged this limited vision, asserting that women deserved recognition as rational beings capable of moral and intellectual growth. Moreover, Wollstonecraft connected personal virtue to societal progress. She argued that the cultivation of reason and morality in women would ripple outward, strengthening families, communities, and the broader social fabric. Women's empowerment was not simply an individual good, but a collective benefit, laying the foundation for a more equitable and enlightened society. Her treatise also explored the themes of dignity, autonomy, and justice, calling for women's rights not as a concession or favor, but as a natural extension of human rights. She emphasized that limiting women's education and freedom was a form of oppression that weakened the entire society. In these pages, Wollstonecraft planted seeds that would later blossom in the suffrage movements of the 19th and 20th centuries and continue to inspire feminists worldwide. She articulated a vision of equality grounded in reason, courage, and moral clarity, one that demanded recognition and respect for women's full humanity. This chapter invites you to imagine the flickering candlelight of a London parlour in the late 1700s. Mary Wollstonecraft, quill in hand, pours her heart and mind onto parchment, her voice steady and resolute. The room grows quiet as her eyes grow heavy with exhaustion and hope intertwined. Let the quiet crackle of the candle's flame and the gentle scratch of pen on paper soothe you. Imagine the warmth of that simple room, a sanctuary of ideas and courage. As the words equality and reason echo softly in your mind, feel their gentle invitation to rest. Allow Wollstonecraft's vision to lull you toward peaceful sleep, a world where dignity and opportunity embrace all. Good night, dear dreamer. Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Woman is more than a historical document. It is the spark that ignited generations of women's rights movements, from the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 to the suffrage campaigns of the 20th century. Her pioneering arguments laid the intellectual groundwork for activists who would carry the torch of gender equality forward in countless societies around the world. The ripples of Wollstonecraft's work extended beyond her own era, inspiring thinkers and writers who sought to expand the vision of women's liberation. Her daughter, Mary Shelley, who would go on to write Frankenstein, inherited her mother's fierce intellect and commitment to challenging societal norms. Shelley's groundbreaking novel, while often read as Gothic fiction, also explores themes of creation, responsibility, and the quest for identity, concepts deeply entwined with Wollstonecraft's feminist legacy. Philosophers like John Stuart Mill found in Wollstonecraft's arguments a foundation for their own progressive ideas on liberty and justice. Mill's The Subjection of Women echoes many of her calls for educational equality and legal rights, demonstrating how her work resonated beyond feminist circles into broader political philosophy. In the 20th century, Simone de Beauvoir, a towering figure in existentialist feminism, acknowledged Wollstonecraft as a foremother of modern feminist thought. De Beauvoir's seminal work, The Second Sex, expanded on themes of freedom, otherness, and the social construction of gender that Wollstonecraft had begun to articulate centuries before. Wollstonecraft's voice continues to be a beacon, reminding us that the fight for gender equality is long and ongoing. Her insistence on reason, education, and moral development as universal human qualities challenges every generation to rethink traditions, laws, and cultural norms that limit half of humanity. Her influence can be seen today in the global movements for women's rights, educational access, and gender justice, as well as in the continued debates around equality in workplaces, politics, and personal freedoms. Wollstonecraft's courage to speak out, even in the face of scorn and resistance, remains a powerful example of how ideas, when wielded with conviction and compassion, can change the course of history. Imagine a quiet lamplit parlour in 18th century London. The flickering glow of candlelight dances softly on the walls, casting gentle shadows that sway like whispers. There, seated at a small wooden desk, Mary Wollstonecraft holds her quill, her hand steady, but her eyelids growing heavy with fatigue. The ink dries slowly on her manuscript, each stroke carrying the weight of her hopes and dreams for a better world. A soft ember glows low in the candle, its warmth a comforting presence as the floorboards creak gently beneath the slow, careful steps of a cat wandering through the room. Outside, the muffled sounds of a city winding down blend with the calm rhythm of the night. Let the quiet warmth of this scene wrap around you like a gentle embrace. Feel the stillness inviting you to release the day's worries and drift into rest. As Wollstonecraft's vision of equality echoes softly in your mind, allow it to lull you deeper, each breath steady, each thought light. In this moment, remember that every person is worthy of dignity, every voice matters, and the promise of a fairer world rests quietly in the night, waiting to greet you in your dreams. Good night, dear dreamer. Imagine the bustling city of Alexandria, a vibrant center of learning and culture on the Mediterranean coast. Around 300 BCE, amid the scroll-filled halls of its famed library, a remarkable scholar named Euclid gathered the wisdom of earlier mathematicians and wove it into a comprehensive masterpiece, Elements. This monumental work would become the bedrock of geometry for millennia to come. Euclid did not invent geometry from scratch. Instead, he built upon the discoveries of great minds before him. Thales, often credited with introducing geometry to the Greeks, explored properties of triangles and circles. Pythagoras, with his famous theorem, unlocked relationships between the sides of right triangles, while Hippocrates worked on the quadrature of lunes and the foundations of area measurement. Euclid's genius was in systematizing this accumulated knowledge into a clear, logical structure, creating 13 books that covered plane and solid geometry, number theory, and mathematical rigor. Each book unfolds with postulates, self-evident truths, and definitions that establish the basic concepts. What is a point, a line, a plane, and so on. From these simple foundations, Euclid demonstrated propositions, statements proved through logical reasoning step by step. This methodical approach transformed geometry from a set of isolated facts into a coherent system where each new result follows inevitably from what came before. His Elements became a template for not only mathematics, but also for rational thought itself. For over 2,000 years, students across civilizations studied these texts, copying and translating them, ensuring that Euclid's vision endured through time and across continents. The clarity and precision of his work laid the groundwork for advances in science, engineering, and philosophy. At the heart of Elements lies Euclid's elegant axiomatic method. The journey begins with clear definitions that might seem simple to us now, but were revolutionary in their insistence on clarity and precision. A point, Euclid declares, is that which has no part. A line is breadthless length, and a surface is that which has length and breadth only. These foundational concepts set the stage for rigorous exploration. Euclid introduces 5 postulates, the first of which allows drawing a straight line between any 2 points. The fifth, the famous parallel postulate, states that if a line crosses 2 others and the interior angles on one side add up to less than 2 right angles, those 2 lines will meet on that side, an idea that would challenge mathematicians for centuries. The beauty of Euclid's method lies in its logical progression. Starting from these axioms, each proposition is proven through a series of deductive steps, each relying only on what has already been established. This approach does not assume anything that isn't explicitly stated or derived, creating a chain of reasoning as unbreakable as the lines he describes. Through this structure, Euclid taught not just geometry, but the very art of logical thought, a way to build complex knowledge from simple, undeniable truths. His work became the standard for mathematical proof, influencing thinkers from Renaissance artists who mastered perspective to Newton, who applied geometry to understand the physical universe. Elements was not just a book, but a method, a model for inquiry that shaped how humans reason about the world. It showed that from a few clear ideas, the vast landscape of knowledge could unfold, step by step, with certainty and grace. Tonight, as you drift to sleep, imagine yourself in that ancient Alexandrian study. Scrolls lie scattered, quills rest beside inkpots, and the quiet flicker of candlelight casts long shadows on parchment. Feel the gentle rhythm of logic guiding you as definitions and proofs flow softly, lulling your mind into a peaceful, orderly rest. Euclid's Elements stands as one of the most enduring works in the history of human thought. For over 2 millennia, it formed the core curriculum of mathematical education throughout the world. Its influence extended far beyond its original Greek audience, as translations into Arabic, Latin, and later vernacular languages helped spread its reach across continents and cultures. In the Islamic Golden Age, scholars like al-Khwarizmi and al-Farabi translated and studied Euclid's work, building bridges between ancient Greek knowledge and new discoveries in mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. These Arabic translations eventually made their way to Europe during the Middle Ages, where Elements became foundational to the intellectual revival of the Renaissance. Medieval universities adopted Euclid's geometry as the very definition of mathematics itself. In many places, the word mathematics was nearly synonymous with Euclid. The clarity and rigor of his axiomatic system provided a model for all forms of scientific reasoning, inspiring scholars to seek certainty through logical proof. The impact of Elements is also visible in the arts. Renaissance painters and architects, inspired by the geometric principles Euclid outlined, mastered perspective and proportion, transforming how space and form were represented visually. The rediscovery of Euclidean geometry allowed artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo to render the world with unprecedented realism and depth. In the sciences, Newton's laws of motion and universal gravitation, presented in Principia Mathematica, leaned heavily on the geometric frameworks established by Euclid. The logical structure of elements influenced the development of modern logic, setting a precedent for rigorous argumentation that continues to underpin mathematics and philosophy today. Euclid's work remains a testament to the power of clarity, structure, and reason. It reminds us that complex truths can be built upon simple, undeniable foundations, and that knowledge is a journey from the known to the unknown, step by careful step. Now, picture yourself back in that dusty Alexandrian study, centuries past. The day's work complete, parchment scrolls are gently rolled closed, their texts resting silently within. The faint scent of aged papyrus mingles with the quiet stillness. Ink-dipped quills settle in their holders as the soft hush of the library envelops you. Outside, the stars begin to emerge, twinkling gently over the distant peaks of Mount Atlas, casting a serene glow upon the world. As you breathe slowly, feel the lines and angles of Euclid's geometry melt away, softening into gentle curves that rise and fall with your breath. Let the precision of proofs relax into the smooth rhythm of your heartbeat. In this tranquil moment, surrender to the quiet order of the universe, guided by the timeless logic of Euclid's wisdom. Let your mind drift softly through the calm, balanced shapes of sleep. Good night, dear dreamer. May your rest be as deep and profound as the knowledge and insight you have gathered on this journey. Let the wisdom of ages cradle your sleep and inspire your dreams, as you lie sheltered beneath the quiet light of the library's last glow.